Hey everyone, it is Eric Meehan here with another message in the bottle wine video. It is October 15th. It was a flower day, but very early when probably not many of you were up, and it has since turned into a leaf day. So again, not a great day for wine, but that's okay. There's always a lot of nice options. Or just go with that wine and say heck with it. So today I wanted to talk about something that comes up a lot, especially at this time of year, because we're kind of going into a different season, different cuisines that we're eating, more savory, crock potty stuff, for instance. Crock potty sounds naughty. You get my point. Anyway, moving on. And I want to talk about sweet. What do people mean by sweet? So I'm going to be joined today by two of my good friends from the Finger Lakes regions. These are both from the Boundary Breaks winery. You can see that's their Riesling there. This is their ice wine Riesling here. And I want to talk about the concept of sweet. What you mean when you say sweet, what we are thinking about when you say sweet, what we mean when we say sweet, etc., etc., etc. So sweetness. Sweet to me as a wine merchant, right, means something that actually has like sugary quality to the palate. And this is where we come up with this term residual sugar. Also, you should know the term chapitalization. These are two different things. Residual sugar is sugar that is left in the wine when it is done being made into a product. Essentially, you're either stopping fermentation early to retain some of that sweetness, but leaving it at a lower alcohol level, or you're stopping fermentation, for instance, in the case of port, early by adding a neutral grape brandy to a fermenting young wine, killing the yeast, essentially, because that's what's fermenting the wine. So that leaves sugar in that wine, but it boosts the alcohol percentage. Let's set that to the side right now. One of the easiest ways that you can sort of start to tell about if a wine has some sweetness to it is if it's not fully, and if it's not fully fermented, the sugars aren't fully fermented out, resulting in obviously a dry wine. You're looking at the alcohol percentage because you're thinking, okay, what is the normal alcohol percentage of this region? And you may not know that, but we can sort of talk about the range. If this alcohol percentage doesn't fall within the range of typically dry wines from that region, it may be because there's residual sugar left in there. So, for instance, right, so my friends that are joining me here, so a normal Riesling, if it was fermented out fully, right, like I've got this Alsace Riesling over here, things like that, they can get up into the 14% range. Normally for table wines that are dry, you're dealing with anywhere from 12.5 to 15 plus percentage, depending on where the stuff was made, how ripe it got, how much sugar there was to ferment out, and how able they were to ferment it all out. Because of course, as the alcohol percentage gets higher in the given liquid, the yeasts are going to start to die because they are being killed by the alcohol. Like, they thrive in the sugary juice, but as soon as that goes to a certain level, like I was mentioning with port, for the yeasts, and there you go, there's your bottle of wine. And that's the same thing with anything else that's fermenting, right? So this is why I brought my other friends. I'm the two friends from the Riesling, and then my glasses. So very often, if you can't find it on the front, and these guys actually do tell you right on the front, 13% alcohol, but it will always tell you on the back label as well, just in case you're looking for the alcohol percentage. So 13%, that's a little lower, and even these guys are great because they tell you, like, this is a dry Riesling, but it's not like hyper dry. 13%, so it's basically all been fermented out, but it still has a lot of that sort of and this is where the difference comes between me being a merchant and you all being consumers. You might still perceive the beautiful citrusy aromatics of this drier Riesling as still being sweet, but on the palate there's not the residual sugar because basically most, if not all of it, was fermented out. So this is a 13%. Still a little low, but of course in the Finger Lakes you may not get ripening, so that might be completely. And they indicated certainly dry, and when I've had it, it's certainly a drier style Riesling. Now, this is an ice wine. This is a wine, of course, it's left on the vines longer. We can talk about ice wines in another time. But if you'll see, they also give you the bricks, which is amazing. That's the ratio of waters to solids. But this is 9.75% alcohol. So lower alcohol, more sugar. And of course, if you've ever had an ice wine, it's a dessert wine, right? So you're having it and it's like, oh, it's sugary. Like your palate is perceiving that sugar. And people disagree on it, but there's a certain level of residual sugar where you start to feel it more as actual sweetness rather than just kind of weight on your palate. Because there's a little bit of residual sugar very often in champagnes, things like that, that are almost imperceptible. They're just weight on the palate, just a little bit of sugar, like it adds viscosity rather than actual sweetness. So that's just something to think about, because when you come in and say, hey, I really like a sweet wine, I'm thinking, do you want a sweet wine or do you want something that's kind of juicier, like one of those overly ripe 15% style wines, like a lot of Zinfandels can be that way. A lot of, some other wines can be very juicy and fruit forward, and juicy can be sweet in your palate, right? Like it's juicy, like Kool-Aid, for gosh sakes. But then there's things that are actually sweet with residual sugar. So just something to think about when you're coming in saying, hey, I'm buying something for my friend. I know that they really like sweet wines. Do they like dessert wines or something like a Moscato, which is also, I think this is 5% alcohol, this wonderful Moscato d'Asti, or do they want something that's going to be jammy and fruit forward, but not necessarily sugary? Food for thought. Actually, wine for thought. I'll talk to you next time on Message in the Bottle. Bye-bye.